Good morning, mathematicians. It is Thursday of week 20. And as we finish out this week, we're starting off with some multiplication. So we're going to be doing 721 times 3 to start us off. Well, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times 7 is 21. Now, what I love about this bottom factor is look, our next number on the bottom, our next digit on the bottom that we're going to be multiplying by is 3. So guess what? We can repeat this number again because if I know that 721 times 3 is 2,163, I know that 721 times 30 is going to be this number, 3612 with a 0, right? Do you see the way that I could use the partial product on top, which is this number times 3, to help me out with the next, which is this number times 30? So now let's add those partial products. 3 plus 0 is 3, 6 plus 3 is 9, 1 plus 6 is 7, 2 plus 1 is 3, and 2 plus nothing is 2. 1, 2, 3, comma. So our answer to this question is 23,793. Now, do you notice the same pattern will be true of our bottom factor here? We have a 2 repeated, right? So let's first answer what 4,121 times 2 is, but then we're going to repeat that or use that to answer what that number times 20 is and that number times 200. So let's get started. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 1 is 2. And 2 times 4 is 8. So I know that 4,121 times 2 was this. So this same number times 20 when I multiply by the second digit of my bottom factor is going to be the same number, but with a 0, right? Let me draw a little line here to keep those two separated. Now notice what's happening. My next digit that I'm going to multiply by is also a 2, but it is a 2 in what place value position? It's a 2 in the hundred place. So my answer is going to start here. I'm going to have two zeros because I need a 0 to sit in the tens place, and I need a 0 to sit in the ones place. And now I'm going to repeat those same numbers that we were working with in our top two partial products. So now I'm going to add these together. I have 2 plus 0 is 2. I have 4 plus 2 plus 0 is 6. I have 2 plus 4 plus 2 is 8. I have 8 plus 2 is a 10 plus 4 more is 14. Here's my 4 carrying my 1. I have 1 plus 8 plus 2 is 11. Here's my 1 carrying my 1. And 9 is what I have when I get 8 plus 1. So my answer to this question is 914,862. I really like this particular question because it gave us practice in two different special things. One is when you have a number that repeats in your bottom factor, right? Being able to use that fact. And the other is this is an opportunity to think if you have a third digit to work with in your bottom factor, remember the magic zeros. So when I moved on to the 2 in the 10th place, I had to have one magic zero to sit in that ones place that I was skipping. But then when I moved on to this 2 in the 100th place, I had to have two, what we might call magic zeros, because I had to have one sitting in the 10th place and one sitting in the ones place. So that was a great opportunity to think about that as well. Let's go ahead to our next one. Leonardo da Crispy bought 34 bottles of his signature crispy paint for $272. How much would it cost to purchase 8 bottles of this unique paint? So remember, boys and girls, that 272 was how much money it cost to buy 34 bottles, right? So I could divide 272 by 34 to find out how much each bottle of paint cost. Now, when I do that, I'm going to find that each bottle of paint costs $8 because 272 divided by 34 equals 8. Now, Since I know that that is true, I know that each bottle, like one bottle, is going to equal $8. That's what I know at that point. Now, the reason that that is now helpful is because that can help me answer this question: how much would it cost to purchase 8 bottles of paint? Well, 8 bottles of paint times $8 each equals $64. So, how much would it cost to buy this unique paint? It would cost $64. Let's go ahead to our next question. Smiley Cyrus is saving up for a new wrecking ball that costs $980. She has already saved half of the money. Smiley earns $14 per hour selling flowers. How many hours must Smiley work to save the rest of the money? So remember, we're going to think about all of these numbers in our problem, and there are quite a few numbers that we need to think about. And even this word right here, half, which is a number, but also really an operator, because it tells us that one of our first things we might want to think about is what is half of 980? Well, if I have 980 and I break it into two groups, I have 490. So that tells me that she saved 490, but she also has 490 that she still needs to earn. She still needs to earn $490. Now, that $490 will be saved by working for an hour and earning $14 for each hour that she works. So the next thing that I need to do is I need to find out what is 490 being divided by 14. Now, that fact is not one that I can do really quickly in my mind. So I might come on over here and I'm going to borrow a little bit of space from yesterday's column. I went ahead and solved it on a separate piece of paper. So I'm going to borrow a little space over here to figure this out. This one is not a fact that I just have memorized. So I need to come and do a little, I'm going to do a little partial quotients to figure out how much I need. Now, the first thing I'm looking at is 14 and this idea of 49, right? Well, when I look at this, I realize that I could start with 30 times 14, because when I think about 3 times 14, 3 times 14 is going to be 42, and then I have that extra 0 to the side. Well, that's a good first take because that uses up a big portion, and I only have 70 left in my dividend that I still need to work with. Well, how many groups of 14 can I get from 70? I can get 5 groups because 5 times 14 is exactly 70. So there's no remainder. So that tells me that my answer here is 35. Now, let's go back and let's ask ourselves, what does that 35 mean in relation to the question? Well, remember what we were asked was how many hours must Miley work to save the rest of her money? Well, she must work 35 hours because with 35 hours at $14 per hour, that's going to give her exactly the $490 that she still needs for her new wrecking ball. All right, we say doozy for our last question. This one says a Rubik's Cube is 3 times as heavy as a fidget spinner. The total weight of 6 fidget spinners and 6 Rubik's Cubes is 192 grams. What is the total weight of 8 Rubik's Cubes and 7 fidget spinners? This is one of those questions that when I first read it, I for sure had to read it multiple times to break it down and think about not only what I was being asked, but what my plan for solving would be. So the first thing I did is I kind of separated out the actual question and first just made sense of the situation. So the first thing I noticed is this: the relationship between the Rubik's Cubes and the fidget spinners is like this. If I have a Rubik's Cube and a fidget spinner, remember that this line, the Rubik's Cube, is 3 times as heavy as the fidget spinner. So I would need this for the Rubik's Cube, and this could be the fidget spinner, right? Because this is certainly one of them, and this would take 3 of those because this is 3 times as heavy as this is, right? Now that is when I compare one fidget spinner to one Rubik's Cube. But then I go down and I see that actually 6 fidget spinners and 6 Rubik's Cubes has a weight of 192 grams. Now that makes me realize that we have to take this situation times 6, right? Which I did here. Because what I have here, I now have here, but also here, and I could even continue it. Because in all of these, we're going to find that we would have a fidget spinner to Rubik's Cube, right? Fidget spinner to Rubik's Cube. Fidget spinner to Rubik's Cube. Fidget spinner to Rubik's Cube. And the same thing here. One fidget spinner to that heavy Rubik's Cube that actually is 3 times heavier. So now I'm looking at a situation where I have 6 fidget spinners and 6 Rubik's Cubes. And all of this, which does include both of the rows, is going to be 192 grams, right? So why did my mind think about this? Why did my mind go here to illustrate what I was thinking? This could help me figure out how much one fidget spinner weighs, and in turn, that times 3, how much one Rubik's Cube weighs. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to take 192 and I actually need to divide that by a very large number because how many individual squares do we have here? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 in this row, 12 in this row. We have 24 individual rectangles that are in this comparison accounting for all 192 grams, right? So that's the very first thing that I need to figure in order to start getting my way to the end of this problem. Now, when I take a look at this, through whatever strategy you want to divide this, show that strategy and you're going to find that your answer is 8. So what does that mean? That means that one of these small rectangles is equating to 8 grams. So I know that one fidget spinner equals 8 grams. But look, the Rubik's Cube is using up 3 of those, right? So we would have 3 times 8. We know that a Rubik's Cube is 24 grams because that is accounting for 24 uh, between all 3 of those rectangles. Now, the reason that this idea can help me out is because I'm now ready to use, I broke this down, the information above the red line, to now help me answer the question below. Below it says, what is the total weight of 8 Rubik's Cubes? Well, 8 Rubik's Cubes would be 8 times 24, right? So I need to answer that. And 7 fidget spinners. So I also need to answer 7 times 8 because this is going to be the weight of the fidget spinner is 8 grams, and I have 7 of those, right? So let's go ahead and do that. I know that 7 times 8 is 56. Now I need to figure out what 8 times 24 is. You can do that with whatever strategy you prefer. I'm just going to come down to the bottom and do a little scratch work. I have 8 times 4 is 32. Here's my 2. Carry my 3. 8 times 2 is 16. 17, 18, 19. I have 192 grams in the weight of all 8 Rubik's Cubes. I have 56 grams in the weight of the 7 fidget spinners. So the last thing that I need to do to get to my final answer is I need to add those. So I have 6 plus 2 is 8. I have 9 plus 5 is 14. And I have 1 plus 1 is 2. So what have I found to be true? I have found that 8 Rubik's Cubes and 7 fidget spinners are going to have a weight of 248 grams. That was a doozy of a question. Great job persevering through that. We have completed week